what that sound effect was and why. Hello and welcome to the FIBA World Cup postgame show. Pool play is over and the USA is undefeated after a blowout win of Brazil. But for the second day in a row, a major shocker in the FIBA play has altered the brackets, and we'll be talking about that. I'm David Locke of Locked On Jazz and Locked On NBA. He's John Corrales of Locked On Celtics. This is the FIBA World Cup postgame show on Locked On Live. You can follow it on Twitch, on Facebook, on Periscope/Twitter, as well as on YouTube. They're all available for you. They're all at Locked On Live, and we'd love to get the chat interaction that we had going the other day as well. So the first thing I would say, John, today is I'm watching the ball game and thinking to myself, gosh, they look good. They're doing things well, ball movement, defensive pressure. Why can't they run away? And maybe that's the beauty of basketball, is if you play long enough, you eventually do run away, and that's exactly what they did today as they win this one in a blowout fashion by the end.
You know, I'll compare it to if you took a wire hanger and you just keep bending it and bending it and bending it, eventually it's going to break. And I think that's what happened with the Brazil team. I think Brazil got frustrated a lot. You saw them complaining to the refs a lot. Obviously, their coach got ejected. I think he was right about the call. I think Varejao should have been was fouled on the play, but they really just let that wear them down mentally. And they put forth so much effort, and things were going so well for them for so long. Then to close out the third quarter, Marcus Smart hits that buzzer-beating three, that crazy three-point shot. And as soon as Brazil came out and was a little deflated, the Americans just ran with it. They were getting out in transition. They were clearing the boards, which they weren't doing earlier in the game, and then just wore them down. And then boom, 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 quick shot. Guys got hot. Kemba hit a three. I think Joe Harris hit a three. And next thing you know, you blink and a tight game turns into a blowout. So I think the U.S. just relentless with their depth, like we've been talking about. You let down for any amount of time, and you run the risk of watching that lead balloon to double digits.
Do you think the USA team is different today? Have they made progress? Have they made strides compared to where they were when we did our first show after they beat a Czech Republic team, which actually has turned out to be the best team that they, by people's performance, the best team they played? Czech Republic stunned Greece today. Giannis Antetokounmpo is out of the tournament. And the Czech actually turned out, led by Thomas Satoransky in his brilliant week, turned out to be the best team the USA played. Are they a better team than the team we saw after that first game?
I think you saw that they were playing a lot more connected. They were defending fairly well, although they were, like I said, they were giving up a lot of offensive rebounds early on. But you saw them moving and making cuts and going back door and getting some precision passes, which is a sign of a team that is coming together. You saw even a guy like Jaylen Brown in that fourth quarter where they pulled away. Jaylen Brown, not known for making decisions in transition with the pass. He, in his Celtics tenure, has in transition always tried to make the highlight play, has been known to force it. And he ended up with 4 assists in this, and it was all in transition, making the right play and leading to layups. And those type of things, it's trust, it's listening to coaches, it's working with your teammates and understanding where guys are going to be. So this is slowly going from a collection of NBA talent to an actual team. We're actually starting to see the hallmarks of team play. So yeah, that makes them better than they were when they started this whole thing in Las Vegas.
They have not seen the zone defense the way they did against Turkey that caused them so many problems. No one's quite rolled that out. We'll see whether they see that coming up in the upcoming games, and we'll get into what their bracket is going to be. It's really fascinating what's happened bracket-wise. Today, the USA beats Brazil 89-73. Kemba Walker, 16. Miles Turner, 16. All of them two-point shots. He also had 8 rebounds, dominating force on the inside. 11 for Jaylen Brown, 10 for Harrison Barnes, 9 for Chris Middleton, 9 for Marcus Smart today. USA hits 8 of 25 for 3, but hits 52% overall. They dominated inside, 28 of 44 on their two-point shots. And there's a lot of talk before this tournament started, John, about Jason Tatum and Donovan Mitchell, and this is Kemba Walker's team. He is by far the best player on this team, and that's become abundantly obvious every time they take the floor.
Yeah, I mean, he's just looked good. And whenever they needed a bucket to kind of calm things down, and I consider those clutch baskets when a team, even in the third quarter or the second quarter, is making a charge and you have a guy that's able to get a basket to just calm things down, set things right, end a run. I consider that a clutch basket. That's an important shot to make. Kemba's been doing it. I mean, look, 16 points, 5 assists, just in total control. That's the whole tournament for Kemba Walker. In total control of himself, of his game. He's taking charges. He's playing pretty good on-ball defense. He's doing a lot of things for Team USA. Absolutely, he's been the best player.
I'm David Locke. He's John Corrales. I host Locked On Jazz. He hosts Locked On Celtics. Both of us host Locked On NBA. This is Locked On Live. You can get it on Twitch, Facebook, Periscope, and YouTube. Subscribe to any of those and follow all of the Locked On Podcast Network live programming. USA beats Brazil today. 21-18 at the end of one. They were 9 of 17, but they assisted on 6 of the 9 field goals in the first quarter, John. And to me, that's what you were talking about earlier. We begin to see the semblance of a basketball team.
Yeah, I mean, the ball movement is really impressive, and it goes with everybody. Marcus Smart is out there making passes. Derek White is out there making passes. I mean, they're starting to figure out, especially on the perimeter, trying to work the ball around. The ball movement has been better than we've seen. And you talked about the zone defense before. When they do get that hardcore 2-3 zone defense, again, it's going to be this ball movement that's going to break things down. And they did see some of it here, but they're able to get that ball from side to side. They're able to attack those seams. That's the type of thing. I think they're just getting that message over and over again. Whatever Pop's telling them, they're actually executing what Pop and Steve Kerr and Lloyd Pierce, Jay Wright, telling them when it comes to attacking the zone defense and moving the ball, even when it comes to man-to-man, that patience to move the ball and get to the right spots. We're seeing it pay off. I mean, 89 points. You don't normally see 89 points from this USA team. They're not a big offensive, explosive team, but slowly but surely, we're starting to see it. I didn't really like the Brook Lopez minutes, and luckily there weren't a lot of them. But I think we're starting to see guys start to feel this chemistry. I'm looking at Joe Harris's numbers. I mean, he's critical to busting these zones, and Harrison Barnes had some nice moments. So, again, chemistry. It's coming together. It's nice to see.
Ball movement has been much better in the last few ball games. Ever since the Turkey game, it's been far better for the USA. And actually, the other one that jumped out to me is some play sets. Those things you expected to see out of a Popovich coach team. It was a beautiful play early in the first quarter where Donovan Mitchell was on the right corner, and he sliced out of the right corner, which led to an open side pick and roll where they bounced to Miles Turner. The pick came for Kemba, then came to the middle. Donovan had cleared that area, so then Turner's rolling by himself to the basket. Those are Popovich-esque moves where your player movement initiated leads to a easy look layup. And we hadn't seen much of that, particularly against the zone. We saw almost none of it. We're beginning, I think, to see Popovich either understand his talent or maybe Popovich realizing there's got to be more to what's taking place than what they were doing earlier.
And we saw the same thing. Marcus Smart had a reverse layup on a play that was designed for, I believe, Joe Harris in the corner. Same idea. And they're not only executing, but reading. And Marcus Smart made a read to kind of not break the play, go off a different action on the play, and it ended up with a layup. This kind of execution is going to be what serves them well, because now they're getting into the meat of this tournament. Now we're in the elimination round with a hell of a tough road ahead of them. This is not going to be easy to win this gold medal. So getting these sets, executing them, not only just executing like you go here, you go here, you go here, but reading off of that and making decisions and kind of freelancing a little bit within the construct of that offense. Again, that's what makes a team. That's what allows you to create these easy baskets. You go back now after this, You get that good execution. You say, all right, how do we look at this film and break things down and just apply those lessons to the next one? The way this is going, hopefully for Team USA, they start to maybe play a little bit better against France and execute a little bit better. You get a different challenge there with Gobert. You have different things that you need to execute as you're moving forward. That cohesiveness that we're seeing, executing these game plans, looking at this Popovich offense that they're really embracing, getting those things down now is really going to serve them well as they get into the toughest part of this tournament to win this gold medal.
Well, and that part of this tournament is going to be much tougher than anticipated. Let's walk through that part. Comment zones are open for you. Our live chat is up. You can get it at Locked On Live on Facebook, Twitch, Periscope/Twitter, as well as on YouTube. Put in a comment. It comes right to us. We'll be interested to hear what you have to say. And we have our first little fun snide comment of the day from Brian Brokoff, who's wondering if Rudy Gobert will ever speak to Joe Ingles ever again. After a stunner today, Australia in a great game. I mean, a great basketball game. It's been so fun to have these games early in the morning and high-quality games, as a fabulous win by Australia beats France. And, John, we did the first thing. We talked about who are the teams that might be able to beat the U.S. You took Serbia. I took France. I think universally, would you agree, when the tournament started, the three best teams in everyone's minds were USA, Serbia, and France. Those were the three best teams, right?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, those teams have played together for a long time. They've got high-level NBA stars on their teams. Yeah, that's the biggest challenge. And really, you look at those. Who has the best player on the floor? When we're talking about basketball, who has the best player on the floor? Those teams tend to win. And I would say that Rudy Gobert might be the best player on the floor, or has a very strong chance to be the best player on the floor, especially defensively. You park him in the middle of that lane. If the U.S. is not hitting their shots, I don't know how they're going to create against Gobert. I mean, that's going to be really, really difficult. It's going to take a lot of creativity. Going back to that point about the cohesiveness, to get the creativity that you need to challenge Gobert, they're really going to have to be together, play together, and try something new, maybe that we haven't seen yet. Because if they're cold, I don't know what's going to happen against France.
Well, let's talk about what's happened in the last 24 hours or maybe 36 hours that has really rocked the FIBA world. Spain stunned Serbia. Nikola Jokic got ejected in the third quarter of that game, and they ended up, Spain wins that. So Spain gets the number one seed in that grouping and now goes to the other side of the bracket. The second thing that happens is Australia upsets France today, and they go to the other side of the bracket. So now on one side of your bracket is the United States, France, and Serbia, the three teams we just talked about, who were the best teams along. The USA's route to a gold medal now is going to be France, Serbia, and then Australia, in all likelihood, unless Spain can beat Australia. And frankly, Australia is such that the Czech Republic and Thomas Satoransky, who they play in the first round, I don't know that I actually think that that's a no-brainer for Australia. If they're not careful, they could get knocked out in the quarterfinals. Australia's route is the Czech Republic, likely Spain if they beat Poland, which would be anticipated, and then the next stop. So, John, it's the worst case scenario for the United States of America.
I don't think there was any good scenario for the United States of America going down this road. But yes, the scheduling is not particularly great. And you end up potentially facing the one team that has beaten you in this whole thing. And you saw the end of that Australia game. Not only are they good, they're smart. They make clutch plays. Patty Mills with that steal. And then I forget who it was that shot the three from three-quarter court and drew three free throws to ice.
Mitch
that was.
And just so you know, the only reason I know this is because the Utah Jazz play the Adelaide 36ers and another Australia, the Sydney Kings, the last few years, and Mitch Creek has been on those teams. So that's how I know. My Mitch Creek knowledge is high.
Well, it's no joke. It's no joke. And so, yeah, it's not going to be the easiest road. But just look at the way all these teams are playing. All these teams are tough. The U.S. beat the Czech Republic, but I don't feel great going up against Satoransky right now. Like that would be very, very difficult. I know I keep going back to this. It's wild to say, but Satoransky's been killing it. Patty Mills been killing it. You saw Anderson Varejao, who can't even get onto an NBA roster anymore. He's washed up in the NBA. Looked like prime Kevin McHale against the United States. This is ultimate home court advantage for whichever team the U.S. plays. They know the rules. They've been playing together. They can get away with a lot of things. They're obviously used to playing a more physical style. Everything is lined up to make things as difficult as possible for the United States. But again, with their depth and now their cohesion, they still should have the advantage, I would think.
So Australia, we probably should give some credit. They beat the USA in a game earlier in the exhibition season. We didn't give Australia a lot of credit. We talked about what was wrong with the USA. And then think about the guys you mentioned, Joe Ingles, Matt Dellavedova, Andrew Bogut, Aaron Baines. They've all played together for a long time. That Boomers team has been together. That's the most experienced team out here. So as things get tight, you're right. They know exactly what they're doing. They know how to play. Patty Mills has been a genius. I think he had 30 today. And at the same time, the other one that they have going on in that Australia team, they have multiple ball handlers that get into the pick and roll. And I think this is the same thing France can do a little bit. France does two things to the United States that I think are going to be nerve-wracking if we dig into this quarterfinal matchup coming later this week, and we will have a Locked On Live for you for that as well, is one, they have the rim protector in Rudy Gobert. So they're going to force a team to shoot outside shots. Australia beats France today because Aaron Baines, I believe, went 6 of 8 from 3 today and changed the game. Gobert didn't leave the paint. Baines hit the threes with that set shot and made them. The other thing they have between Evan Fournier, Nando DeCola, and they have a little kid whose name I can't think of right now, who's tough, great shooter, playing off the ball, is they have multiple ball handlers. So Marcus Smart, who had such a huge impact on Giannis, Marcus Smart, who actually had a pretty big impact today at times, you go put him on DeCola, they're going to Fournier. You put him on Fournier, they're going to DeCola. Donovan and Kemba have done a nice job, but one of those is going to have a tough matchup as well.
Yeah, I think it's going to be especially hard for them because both of these teams, you talk about Australia, you talk about France, it's the pick setters that are going to be the biggest problem, because we even saw it in this game against Brazil. Still not entirely great against the pick and roll. And when you look at the elite pick setters that they are facing, that's going to be a big problem. That's going to make the guards who have a tough job, like you just said, against these guards, have an immensely more difficult job, because now you're going to get slammed. Like getting an Aaron Baines pick. I just watched Aaron Baines crush people with picks for years in Boston. That is going to be extraordinarily difficult for the Americans to handle. Running those pick and rolls with Gobert up next, that's going to be extraordinarily difficult for them to handle, because he is an elite rim runner. So that is going to be very hard for the U.S. to deal with. And you start to wonder, if they're not able to handle that, how long before we see the U.S. start to break down and get frustrated and slow down? And some of what we saw happen to Brazil late in the game, will that happen to the Americans in a game against France? Because if they're not able to slow that down, then they're going to have serious problems. I mean, Miles Turner might be the most important player on the floor against France, because he's the only guy that's mobile enough to challenge Gobert and run that pick and roll defense. I don't think Brook Lopez is going to be able to do much unless they find a way to space the floor with him. But again, the FIBA rules, I don't think, allow for that to happen. And I don't think that we're going to see any of Plumlee out there. So this is going to be Miles Turner's biggest test and most important game. And if he ends up getting a couple of fouls early, then we're going to see the U.S. small ball be tested. And I'm not entirely confident in all of that.
And the ramifications of this are mammoth. This would be the USA losing in the quarterfinals and not medaling at the FIBA World Cup. I mean, that is what it's just by playing France in the first round. Either France or the United States will not medal in the FIBA World Cup because of what happened today with Australia beating France. It's really, in the FIBA World Cup world, it's stunning. These are two teams that almost felt certain to be medaling. The medal thought was Serbia, USA, and France, and in what order was in doubt. The idea that one of them will be out is really surprising. Jimmy Winskowski says the U.S. offense looks vanilla. Is that a function of limited time together, Popovich's choice, seeing a ton of zone defenses, or a combination of the three. What's your thought on that, John?
I don't know what he means by vanilla. I mean, I guess that's what offenses are now in basketball anyway. You're running pick and roll, you're moving the ball, you're trying to spread the floor and attack when there's space. I mean, there's not really a ton of offensive creativity in basketball nowadays anyway. This is a point I actually was talking to Paul Westphal about this at the Hall of Fame induction ceremony. That's the point that he was making, that NBA offenses, they've lost all creativity. This is kind of similar, but I think if you throw in the zone defense, I think if you throw in the physicality and not wanting to get your head knocked off when you're driving to the rim, that would contribute to maybe settling for some jump shots and kind of running a few of the same sets. I do believe that when you're a new team, you want to keep it as simple as possible. It's better to execute a few simple things well than try to create a 100-page playbook. And so if you're looking for something like that, then yeah, I think the relative newness of this team definitely plays into that. You know, there's a lot that you can do with basic offenses. I saw some flex cuts. I saw some floppy action where, you know, a lot of stuff along the baseline where these guys are trying to come out off of screens and catch and make decisions. So there's, I think, some variety in that, but it's not like it's a million plays being run. So call it vanilla. I think that's just kind of how things are nowadays. But I do agree that the rules and the lack of long-term togetherness here does play into all of that.
He's John Corrales of Locked On Celtics, and you can catch him on Locked On NBA every Wednesday with Jake Madison. I'm David Locke of Locked On Jazz. You can catch me on Locked On NBA, our national show, every Thursday. We don't take days off on Locked On NBA. It's been coming to you every single day for the entire offseason because we know for the true basketball fan, there's no offseason. And right now, we just get to wake up with basketball every day. It's the Locked On Live postgame show. The USA blows out Brazil in the fourth quarter today after having just a 4-point advantage at halftime. Kemba Walker led the way with 16. Miles Turner had 16 as well. You can follow the show on Locked On Live. We'll be here postgame for all of the medal round games or one. We're not sure. It's going to be really touch and go when the USA plays France coming up here. It is going to be a high stress, high energy, every possession matters for 40 minutes game coming up when the USA plays France. We'll have Locked On Live for you. Please follow us on Twitter, on Twitch, on Facebook, or on YouTube, and follow Locked On Live as well. Let's get back to some of the comments. Australians are chiming in with some confidence and chest pumping right now, pointing out that Dante Exum, Ben Simmons, Thon Maker, Bolden, and Brokoff are all NBA players that are not on the Australian team right now. I don't think it's quite the same as the USA missing players, but it shows to the depth of Australian basketball and how much they've developed. And what's interesting on Australian basketball, there's a decent argument that the women were the one that kind of set the tone for this a little bit. The Australian women have been gold medal participants against the USA multiple times in the Olympics over the last decade and 2 decades, and now the Australian men may turn out to be a finals team in the FIBA World Cup.
Yeah, Australia has been a hotbed for basketball. I mean, I just know personally, having had Aaron Baines on the Celtics, how many Australian fans have flocked to the Celtics, and it's a very vociferous fan base, very passionate, and we're seeing even with the younger talent, the up-and-coming basketball talent in the United States, how many of these guys are starting to slowly trickle into this Australian league to get their experience rather than go to college, rather than go to the G League? The Australian basketball, professional basketball in Australia, is emerging as a great kind of training ground for the NBA. So that pipeline from Australia into the United States is very, very real. And the passion down there is amazing. It's fun. And absolutely. I'm not surprised that, you know, Australia has come together as one of the better teams internationally.
The story of the day is Australia upsets France. Yesterday, Serbia upset Spain. That's put both France and Serbia into the USA bracket. In the 198 win over France, Patty Mills, 30 points today. Joe Ingles had 23 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists. Matthew Dellavedova had 9 assists. Aaron Baines goes 5 of 6 from 3 is what it was, with 21 points. So those NBAers leading the way. Andrew Bogut played 13 minutes, had 7 points as well. For the France team that USA will play, here's how that makeup goes. And a lot of these will be familiar names to you. This is a deep NBA-laden team. Their backcourt is Evan Fournier. He had 31 today and has been brilliant in the tournament. Nando De Cola, who played for the Spurs for a while, has been the EuroLeague MVP, I believe once, if not twice recently, had 26. He's an NBA player that has just not come back to the NBA. Nicholas Batum, the longtime NBAer, is their starting small forward. He had 13. And then Frank Ntilikina of the Knicks comes off their bench, or actually will start a little bit, as they'll sometimes not start DeCola depending on the circumstances, but I think they'll likely start DeCola, and then Ntilikina comes off the bench for them, and Rudy Gobert is the center. Rudy played 31 minutes tonight. He had 8 points. He had 6 assists and 4 rebounds, plus all the screens. And then a future Boston Celtic is their backup center, another bearded wonder who's a 7-footer, I believe, in Vincent Poirier. How much do you know about him? He's only playing 8 minutes a night, but I've actually been impressed. I think he's not very, if he gets forced out on the perimeter and has to guard space, it's not a great thing for him. He committed a huge foul late when Dellavedova drove by him, but otherwise I've been pretty impressed by him as an NBA level player.
Yeah, I mean, he's an athlete. He runs the floor. He'll go up and catch alley-oops. He'll defend the rim a little bit. He's not going to step out and shoot long range. He's not a floor spacer, but he's tough. You get him within that 10 feet, and he's dangerous. So he's gonna be a problem if the U.S. is missing shots and Poirier is out there running. He's a serious threat. They can throw the ball up just about anywhere. He's a big-time athlete that can go up and get the ball. So he, even in those limited minutes, can be very, very dangerous.
All right, let's get to the 2 keys of the game and then wrap this baby up against France. First one on the offensive side, how do they get Rudy Gobert off the rim? How do they become a team that can at least penetrate and kick to get open looks and break the France defense a little bit?
Well, how do you keep Rudy Gobert off the rim? That's an excellent question. I don't know if you're trying to break the France defense. Let's start with that. It's just going to be ball movement. It's going to have to be very crisp, precise ball movement, and it's going to have to be some challenging of Gobert. I think one of the things that people tend to shy away from shot blockers. I think you attack a shot blocker, but you don't just kind of brazenly go at him. You try to move the defense, and then you attack and see if you can get him into some foul trouble, get him off the floor. So I would think that you got to run a very precise ball movement offense, the type of thing that Greg Popovich has been doing. You cannot go one-on-one against France. I think offensively, you've just really got to.
Are you playing pick and pop with Miles Turner? Are you trying to use Brook Lopez in the Milwaukee Bucks 3-point shooting? Are you willing to go to that route to just get open looks when Gobert holds in the paint?
I just haven't enjoyed Brook Lopez's minutes in this tournament, so I'm trying not to go to him. I could be wrong. Pick and pop is certainly something that you can run. I trust Miles Turner to run a pick and pop and be somewhat effective. And this is where you start to run into the philosophical.
Let me interrupt you just into another question. Do you play Harrison Barnes as the 5? And
it's exactly what I was going to get. It was exactly what I was just going to get into.
Sorry.
No, that's all right. That's all right, because that's where you get into that philosophical question of, do you go small ball against that, but then what are you sacrificing defensively? Like, this is the big question. I think you need Miles Turner to you're going to have to play, I think, a drop pick and roll coverage against Gobert's roll to the rim. You cannot let him get up and dunk all over you. And that's going to require some real defensive effort on the guards you got dangerous shooters over there. Fournier can kill you. DeColo can kill you in the mid-range. So you've got to really make sure that you're putting forth that defensive effort. So are you playing drop pick and roll coverage with Harrison Barnes? No. You're going to have to find a different way to cover that pick and roll, which means you're going to have a guy on the weak side come over and tag Gobert coming down the lane, and then you're leaving a 3-point shooter open. So there's a rotation that has to be made out to that 3-point line. So it requires a very connected level of defense. If you're tagging the roller, then the perimeter has to be on the same page and understanding where you have to go after the pick has been set. Where's the shooter? Where do you have to get out to? The guy who's tagging, how deep do you go? How long do you stay? How far? Then getting back out to your shooter. If you're playing big, that drop pick and roll coverage means that you've got to make sure that you're going over the top of the pick and just trying to force the most inefficient shot, and you're not letting a guy get threes. Just if you're going to get buried by long twos, and you get buried by long twos. So there are a lot of decisions that have to be made when you're trying to keep Gobert off the rim.
Maybe this is good news. The last three matchups between Miles Turner and Rudy Gobert. Miles Turner in March of 2018 went 10 of 14 from the field, had 24 points in that game. In November of 2018, which would be last year's opening early in the season, he had 5 of 12 game with just 12 points. And then in their last matchup, which was November again, they played both games early last year in the 2018-19 season, he went 7 of 8 from the field with 16 points. So maybe Miles Turner has the capability, but those have been my memory on those, which is not always great, is predominantly mid-range jump shots, and I'm not sure that's what the USA wants. Well, it will be interesting to see USA and France coming your direction. We will have the post-game coverage for you. The brackets are set. Serbia and the U.S. and France are all on the same side. Australia, with a mammoth win today, to some extent has opened themselves up for a sweet path to the finals. If they can get by Spain. If not, Marc Gasol and his crew once again will stun everybody and find a way to get themselves back to the finals. The matchups, the quarterfinal matchups, Tuesday, tomorrow, we will see Argentina versus Serbia and Spain, Poland. That should not be that much of a surprise. And then the USA will play, USA is Group K. They will play I'll have to figure out what time that game is, but I think it might be a dreadful, like 2 o'clock in the morning. My memory is on that one. I'm not able to do the Greenwich Mean Time +8, -7, +6.3 efficiency rating. So we'll keep an eye on that one, but that is Wednesday, and we will have coverage for you no matter what time it is, no matter who it might be that is on. Well, like I just committed myself.
It's the first game. It's 7 a.m. Eastern time.
So I'm getting up at 5 a.m. to spend time with you, John. There's people I'd like to see at 5 a.m. in the morning. You're not one of them, but it will be on Wednesday. Thanks for the time today.
I don't want to see myself at 5 a.m.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, your hair is always looking good, though. He's John Corrales. I'm David Locke. Thanks very much for following us on Locked On Live. Subscribe and follow it on YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and Periscope. Thanks for all your comments in the show today. This has been a production of the Locked On Podcast.